Hi there, and welcome to Real Talk in ELT, a podcast about the reality of teaching English. I'm your host, Kelly Pennington. Thank you for joining me today. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Real Talk in ELT. Today, my guest is Rudy Macchiello. Welcome, sir.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you here to chat about the more scientific side of language acquisition.
Oh my God.
Well, we always have the best conversations that usually start out with me saying something like, educate me. No? So let me give everyone a brief introduction to Rudy before we get started crossing some lines into ELT and language acquisition, neuro-linguistic type of stuff. Rudy has a BA in languages from PUC Campinas and a master's degree in applied linguistics from the University of Edinburgh. He also has a postgraduate degree in lesson planning from the University of Oregon and use of technology for language learning from Iowa State. He is the co-author of the book, Formação de Professores, published by Paco Editorial. One of the founding members of Russ Tiesel's Special Interest Group for Mind, Brain, and Education, the founder of Macchiello Consultoria, a center for teachers development, and he is a postgraduate professor at PUC Paraná. Yes?
Yes. I guess so. Yeah.
All of it? Check, check, check.
I sound famous.
Yeah, it's nice to have like a formal introduction, right? So. Okay, so are you ready to get nerdy with me?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So you had sent over some topics because I am such a newbie in this. I wore my NASA shirt just to kind of like make myself feel a little bit better about this whole conversation.
I'm not an astronaut.
Not sure.
I'm not an astronaut, and I'm one of those guys from the Big Bang Theory show. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is just a little out of my purview, but so we're going to try and get through these. Can we start with mental representations?
Sure. Of course. Mental representation is basically everything we develop based on our own experiences. So, for example, if a person, I'm going to use a mug again. I know I use mugs all the time. It's because I always have a mug with me here.
That's fine.
So
we're going to be drinking tea the whole time.
I always use a mug as an example. If you told me that you've watched some episodes of Chá Pedagógico and you've listened to them on Spotify as well, but I always use a mug because, so if a person had an experience in which this is not cylindrical, okay, this is going to be true for that person. That's going to be the mental representation. The person is going to have a mental representation of that not being cylindrical. So that's it. So that's the mental representation. It's basically the imagery that we collect in our minds. So that's a mental representation. And that is going to be extremely connected to language as well. Because once we have those images in our minds, we want to express whatever is going on in our minds. And what are we going to use to express ourselves? Well, unless you're Monet or Robespierre or one of those famous painters, we're going to use language to do that. So, yeah.
Okay. I like it. The theory, it's great. So then what does that actually mean for like language teachers? Because it's really hard for some people to try and connect these things. Like, okay, so we have this representation and we use language to describe it, but then what? Like, how can we help our students with that idea?
First of all, I was just working on this yesterday. And one of the things we can do, there are some activities that we already do without knowing that we're exploring our students' mental representation. So, for example, a simple activity that everybody does, I think not only language teacher, but every teacher does that when they start teaching, especially kids. They ask kids to draw something. So drawing, when you ask students to draw whatever, they are exploring, and you're kind of like having them explore their mental representations, because they are going to draw whatever is in their minds. And they're going to use a different language for that. So they're going to use drawing for that. They're going to use lines and colors and etc. So that's good. And it's also good because then, as language teachers, we're going to be more aware of what's going on. And we're going to be more aware of the whys of certain constructions, because depending on the constructions that we hear, especially I'm talking about bilinguals now, depending on the constructions that we hear as teachers, we're going to be like, why did you say that? It doesn't make any sense. Well, maybe it doesn't make any sense to us, but once we get to know what the person is trying to convey, the message that the person is trying to convey here, then it's going to be much easier for us language teachers to say, oh, you're trying to say that. Okay, now I got it.
So then, as you were talking about drawing and stuff, and you know that I deal mostly with business English. Here's my question though. Could we use or like leverage task-based learning projects and things like that to help our students more clearly develop their speech and their language to be able
Of,
to discuss things?
of course, yes, yeah, that's, I totally advise you do that. So that's not you guys watching us right now, but yeah, for sure. Mental representation is everywhere. We can't avoid it. We really can't avoid it. And even language, because we tend to think that when we acquire a language, we acquire linguistic representations. And what's a linguistic representation? I'm going to use word in a general sense just to represent linguistic representations here. So that's not what happens. So when we develop language, we make an association of the mental representation to the linguistic representation. So, for example, uh, prepositions, all right? The preposition to, for instance. The preposition to is not going to be acquired as a unit, as a single unit. It's normally going to be acquired together, maybe in a phrasal verb, maybe in a full sentence, I don't know. And then based on what's going on in front of us, we're going to develop this mental representation and we're going to associate it to the linguistic representation. So, for instance, a person that says, "Oh, let's go to the mall," and then a person is in the environment and the person hears that again and again and again and again, there's going to be a moment in which the person is going to finally develop, okay, whenever the person um, combines "let's go to the mall," the person is trying to express that this bunch of people are leaving this place and moving to another place where we buy stuff. So that's the mental representation that we have for "let's go to the mall." And then the person is going to understand, as the person is um, um, understands what's going on, the person is going to associate not to, but the person is going to associate the whole thing. "Let's go to the mall." I'm not sure this is a very nice example, but a great example is "thank you." Business people, people who take business English courses as well, they have a hard time understanding that "thank" is a verb. Why? Because it's so engraved in their minds, the "thank you," that when you say, "Oh, could you please thank your friend?" Thank your friend, teacher. Oh, did you thank your client? Thank my client. What's thank? Because "thank you," it's so normal. This combination is so common that they kind of like forget that it's a combination of
They
two
just see it as the
words.
function of saying like,
Not only
thank you, you're welcome, that type of thing.
not only the function, because the function would be pretty much what we have for mental representation. It's very close, very,
Mm-hmm.
very close. But I'm talking about the linguistic representation right now because it's so connected, the mental representation to the linguistic representation, that they don't acquire single units like "thank" and "you." It's "thank you." And then when you say, "Oh, could you please, did you thank your client? Do you remember to thank your client?" Oh, thank. They don't remember that to thank is a verb. And then you say, "Yes, thank," as in "thank you." Oh, yes, teacher. You see, so that's how it works. So we don't acquire uh, single units of linguistic representations. We acquire chunks. Of course, we have some exceptions, for example. So nouns are more common. Concrete, tangible things are easily acquired and normally acquired as a single unit. Because, for example, if you say "mug," of course, We have a mug here, and you're holding it, and all the attention goes to this object. So if you just say mug, that's it. But you're not going to say two. Two means what? See, because it's a bit more abstract. So that's not how it's going to happen. It's a bit more difficult.
Got it. Okay, so then this kind of leads me into we have the list, and so I'm just going to try and follow the list. I'm following so far, but so then what is construction grammar?
Yes. Construction grammar is when you get all these mental representations that we call conceptualizations and we transform them into a schema. Okay? So, for example, a person that says thank you, or, yeah, well, a person that is exposed to thank you all the time, the person is going to develop a conceptualization. What's the conceptualization? When you want to show your gratitude, you combine thank and you. But then the idea is, as this person is going to be exposed to other types of thanks, because it's not going to be just thank you. It's going to be maybe thanks, thank you, thanks, thank you, and etc. This person is going to say, oh, okay, so thank, I understood. Now, what can I do with this word called thank? Oh, I can say thank you, thank her, thank me, thank Lord, thank the teacher. Did you thank her? So then the person is going to create a schema based on the word thank, because assuming that the person understood how to use thank. And then the person is going to create a schema as in thank X, starting with thank X. The X is the variable, and then it's going to become something like did thank X. It's another schema that the person is going to develop. So that's it. Based on the mental representations, we are going to, of course, use language to dress up these mental representations, and that's how we're going to construct our grammar. It's called grammar. The field is called construction grammar, but that's how we are going to construct our grammar.
So then, can I just clarify? Because sometimes I think we assume that people understand some technical terms. When you say schema, are you talking about linguistic schemata or no?
What do you mean by linguistic schemata?
Do you know the thing where they always say, oh, you need to activate the student's schemata?
Okay. Kind of, yeah.
Is it kind of like that or no? Because I feel like we need to be very concise about these terms so that people are not having, like misrepresentations in their minds of what we're talking about.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right, because, well, I mean, we think, oh, mental representation. Okay, I picture it in my mind, but is that exactly what you're trying to tell me? So when you say schema, is that the same thing as when we do those, those teacher courses or whatever, the training courses, and they say, you have to activate the student's schemata? Because my understanding of that is previous experience. And is that the same thing or no?
Kind of. That's what I said.
Okay,
kind of,
so can we differentiate them?
Because when people say schemato, as you said, previous experiences, and if the person had a previous experience with a certain construction, then yes. That's why I said kind of. But schema, no. Schema is exactly this. So when you have a sentence such as I buy books. Simple sentence here. I buy books. What's a schema? X buys Y. That's a schema. X by Y. Again, no inflection of the verb, no conjugation. It's X by Y. That's it. Because then you have the variables. What are the variables? In this case, I buy books, and then he, I'm not going to conjugate the verb. I'm just talking about the schema, okay? He buy books, and then they buy books. A lot of people buy books, and etc. So these are the things.
So it's kind of like the formula. Like when we put it on the board and we say like
but we have to be
verb, object, that type of thing, or no?
No subjects whatsoever. We use X and Y's just to represent the variables. We represent variables because we need to find a way to represent variables. But I could have said, omega by alpha, whatever. You see, that's a little bit different from the tables that we put on the board, because then we talk about subject. That's no, no. That's actually a tip. Instead of doing that, try
Yeah,
to use
no,
schemas,
because
because
this is
schemas are much easier. Schemas are much easier. If you just say X by Y, that's it. And what's going to happen, I'm sure this is going to happen because that's what normally happens, is that because we do that, we generalize these schemas. That's why we call it schemas, because based on that, we're going to generalize all these things. That's why we can say I buy books and then he buy books, because we can generalize it. Meaning that, okay, so I can insert different words and make experiments using these schemas. But what's going to happen though, if you focus on I buy books or X buy Y, as I said, probably a person, maybe a less proficient person, is going to say, oh, okay, so he buy books. Now I'm conjugating verb. Incorrectly, of course, on purpose. And then that's fine, because your students or students, they already have the schema. All you got to do is say, oh, okay, so bias. Oh, okay, bias. Then you're going to have well, I'm going to call it sub schema. There's no such thing, but so we can segment
like a
things.
variation of the same schema,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. Yes, yes, because then the students are going to are going to say like, okay, so he buys books. All right, so he XS Y. X is the in the place of the verb now. We don't have to say verb. You don't need to say verb. You can say whatever you want. All right. So that's why I didn't use verb. I didn't want to cause any kind of confusion. I'm going to use neutral representations here. So he XS, because you need the S, it's a marker. Y, as in he buys books, for example.
Okay. So good, got it. But then, so according to everything that you've studied, is it better to use those types of formulas or things? Not, I don't, do you know what I'm saying? Like putting schemas on the board or trying to break it down like that for students, or
Yeah,
is
it
it an
can be.
individual thing? See, because this is obviously, I'm not a linguist, so I don't know. And we all disagree, apparently.
I
So,
mean, it can be okay. I mean, that's what we do very naturally when we're
okay.
learning to speak. We do it naturally. But once we have our first or native language consolidated, for some reason, well, not for some reason, there is a reason, it becomes automatic. The language comes automatically because, come on, we're talking about 10 years of experience using the same language every single day, everywhere we go. So, of course, it's going to be procedural now. Um, so, we tend not to turn this into a meta awareness. Okay, so we don't think about the whole process of how we learned that language, the language that we speak, our native language. And then when they are adult learners, when they are late bilinguals or sequential bilinguals, you name it, they come and, well, it may be a little bit confusing for them at first. Like, wait, what? So yeah, can it be okay? Yes, it can be okay if you can try. That's fine, especially because it's very similar to the tables that we use. But try to be as simple as you can. Try to be as neutral as you can, because if you just say subject, verb, object, come on, maybe you're going to have a person that doesn't remember what subject and object is. You
Well,
see?
yeah, that's what I was going to say, because some people don't really, I don't know the appropriate way of saying this, but they don't really assimilate to that style, and they do better with like the chunks of language, and they just kind of know like, oh, this is for a purpose, and then I can do that. And so you we don't really have
No,
there's
but
no, I
you're right.
want
No,
guidance,
you're right.
Rudy, is what I'm
No, you're
saying. I
right.
want guidance.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. You can explore the schemas, of course. I'm just saying that these schemas are going to happen in our minds anyway, because they're already there. You know, they are there. But you can explore that visually if you want, or not. You can also explore the mental representation, which is also something that uh, I wouldn't say easier to explore, but it's easier for our students to understand that because you're talking about drawings. So, for instance, uh, it's much easier to explore the mental representation of, for example, go away. Because what would be a general mental representation of go away? So you have an object, okay, and you can represent the object, and then little by little you have that object moving from point A to point B, a little bit farther from um, object B, for example. Then little by little you can represent that, and they are going to understand go away because it's visual and it's pretty much like a drawing. And then when you explore the schemas, it's not actually a drawing, even though it's visual, but it's not a drawing, so it may be a little bit hard for people to understand. It all depends on the students that you have. If they feel comfortable with schemas, yes, that's fine. If they feel comfortable with drawings, with mental representations, yes, that's fine too. So it all depends. Two different tools. You choose it. I mean, can you use a screwdriver to nail something on a wall? Yeah, you can. Can you use a hammer as well? Yes, you can. That's fine.
I mean, one's going to be a little bit more effective than the other, but
Yeah.
it depends on, yeah, how determined you are to get that nail into the wall. So
Mm-hmm.
then, I have one more thing here, but I kind of want to sidetrack a little bit. So then,
Mm-hmm.
after you studied these things and have done a bunch of stuff with it, and I know that you're a super nerd about all of this, but so then, how do you think knowing this stuff because you've studied it? How do you think that's changed your classroom practice, like your teaching practice?
A
Like, do you
lot.
do different things that you've just kind of based on what you know?
Yes, I do. I do for a simple reason because normally the mental representations are very connected to native language. Very connected. Because, of course, it's obvious for obvious reasons. The mental representation was developed based on our native language, you know. So, yeah, why not? If you're teaching them, for instance, idioms like, all right, it's raining cats and dogs. You know, we do have a mental representation for that, but it's linked to Portuguese in our case because it's my native language. So yeah, you can explore that. So why do you have to um, go over all the hassle to no, I have to use L2 and no, just say tá chovendo muito, tá chovendo pra caramba, tá chovendo canivete. Oh, mental representation activated. Okay, what are they going to do? They're going to be like, oh, this is the mental representation I have for tá chovendo canivete. Now I'm going to use the same mental representation for it's raining cats and dogs. And that's it, boom. And then you can go back to L2 and finish your class beautifully.
So yeah, because a lot of people, well, a lot of teachers are like, there's that debate, and I don't know why it's a debate of having should we use L1 in class? Like it's a tool, right? So if okay, we have to use it in a very informed way. Obviously, we can't just do whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
But if we use it as a tool and we see it as a tool to be more efficient, to be more effective, to create or associate these mental representations with the new language with the L2 or whatever if they're multilingual. So it does support, like this idea of mental representation does support using L1 in class because it'll make it easier, right?
Exactly. There's a book by, I think she's French. I'm sorry if I don't remember if this person is French. I think it's Jean Conté. And I'm going to read, I always forget, it's a long name. I got the name of the book here. Don't worry. Here, the EAL, the EAL teaching book. Just a second. The EAL teaching book, promoting success for multilingual learners. And this is an amazing book, by the way. Really good book. Because the entire book is about cases of bilingualism in many places. And there is a case that we have in this book of Polish girl that had just moved into the UK, and she was having a hard time with math classes. And then the school didn't have any teacher who actually knew Polish. You know, once the school found out a teacher to help that knew a little bit of Polish, her grades in math skyrocketed. Why? L1. Because of L1. Um, a person that a person that knows how to count from 1 to 10 is never going to forget how to count from 1 to 10, because the logic is going to be the same. So why are you not going to use that in your favor as a language teacher, for example? Why not say, okay, how do you say count from 1 to 10 in your native language? Blah, 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 blah. All right. So when you want to do the exact same thing in this new language, all you got to do is blah, 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 blah. So that's it, you know. So yes, as you said, we're not going to use native language 100% of the time in our classes and our lessons. But yeah, as a tool, yeah, why not? No problem. No problemo.
Yeah, it's kind of like use it with discretion. Like if you notice that you don't have to and they're able to get the concept or the idea and use the language, then that's fine. Then you don't have to use it. But if you notice maybe like reoccurring problems or things that are just constantly happening, it's obvious that there's something they haven't quite grasped a concept, then maybe it would just be easier to defer back to L1 if you know it. That's and one of the good advantages that a lot of Brazilian teachers have is that they're teaching tons of
Exactly.
Brazilians, and if you know Portuguese enough, I don't know Portuguese very well, but I do use Portuguese in my class because I try to make that association so that they're able to understand.
Yes, and it's super easy. So, for example, if you say, if you're teaching a less proficient learner, simple present, and okay, I don't know how, oh, the students is struggling with simple present and all these things. So, the student is constantly using a different tense. Okay, all you got to say, all you got to do with your student is tell this student that, okay, how do we use simple present? Routines, even if you have to say it in Portuguese. Daily stuff. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's what you do in Portuguese, isn't it? Yes, it is. Okay, the same in English. Oh, got it. So again, you activate the mental representation because the students already know that we use simple present for daily routine. So, okay, the same for English. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. And one thing that we also have to be very careful with is that um, when I say these mental representations, the logic behind all this, and you can also say to if you teach young learners, of course, you can say this to your students' parents. Um, being bilingual or having knowledge of different languages is a matter of diversity and not disability. And many people treat it as a disability. That's why people are so afraid of using L1. Oh no, because this is going to hinder the process of second language acquisition. No, no, it's not going to hinder anything because it's having knowledge of a language prior to the second language that's coming up here is not a disability. It's a matter of diversity. So yeah, you can use it, and you can tell your students' parents as well, because parents are crazy. Oh, my son is, I don't know, 5 years old, and it's in a bilingual setting. So is this going to cause any kind of delays or whatever? No, it's not, because it's a diversity and not a disability. So yeah, use that one, guys. It's fun.
Got it.
Cleverly.
Yeah, well,
Be smart.
I would say use it, yeah, informed discretion, like
Yeah.
really think about how you're using it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That kind of brings us to this one, but I'm not sure. Got lots of questions again. What's joint attention? Is it the same as shared attention? And what does that mean?
Um, Actually,
I'm just going to put all of those together, right?
that's fine. It's a term. It's a term. Okay. We have two terms for the whole process: joint attention and shared intention. So it's just a term, two different terms that we use. But you could maybe the person that coined this term could have said shared attention and joint intention. I don't know, but these are just terms. So joint attention is when um, you have two people in the same environment, for example, the same space. Uh, One person is using their attention to perform some sort of activity, and the other person is using their attention to observe the person that's performing an activity. So you have joint attention. They are joining their attentions into the same thing because the person that's performing the activity is paying attention to that activity. Okay, my attention is here. And the other person, the spectator, is also paying attention to the exact same activity, but with a different perspective. So they're both having their own attention. They're focused on the exact same thing, but from different perspectives. So this is joint attention. Shared intention is like a consequence of joint attention. So when you when the spectator focuses on the performance of that other person, of person A, for example, um, the person is going to understand, is going to try to understand the why the person is doing that. So that's going to be shared. Why shared intention? Because if the person could actually read the intention, if the person could actually answer, why is person A doing that activity? Oh, because of this, this, and that. Okay. So, yes, I understood the why. So, the motive, the person is doing that activity. Person A already has that here in the mind, and person B is going to have that in their mind as well. So, that would be shared with everyone. It's kind of like a consequence. And it's very useful for language as well, which I think you're going to ask me that.
Okay, yeah, so why? So, okay, that makes sense. That's like very clear. But then it's kind of like, got it. That's a nice. So then what does that mean?
Okay, so joint attention is like the first step to that. And then consequently, as a result, you're going to have shared intention. If you have shared intention, you can um, use language to communicate with other people. Why? That's what I'm doing right now. I'm using language to share with all of you whatever is in my mind because I want to share that. So I want you to understand my intention. So if you have shared intention, you're going to choose the words wisely. You're going to make the right choices as you communicate because you really want to say, oh, I'm going to use this word and then that word and then this word and then that word, because then the whole combination of all these words are going to carry this message that I want person B to understand in this way. I don't want the person to understand it in a different way, you know. And when people don't understand that, we have ambiguity, you know, misinformation, for example. Fake news. Fake news is that. That's basically what fake news is. You know, a person is kind of like misinterpreting something, you know, like, no, that's not. Be careful with fake news, guys.
So, well, actually, that's kind of interesting. So, because it leads to when people are having these conversations and they're, interacting with one another and they're trying to be as concise as possible and use, whatever they think is most appropriate. If they don't have this shared intention of actually communicating with the person, then there's going to be problems, which can create all sorts of other issues. So this is kind of like the idea of, I'm going to forget the name of it, but that's fine. But when, for example, if you're having a meeting with somebody and you're trying to sell them a product or whatever, and the person doesn't really want to buy your product, you don't have shared intention because one person just wants to leave the room and the other person is trying to negotiate, right? So, exactly. Or if you're traveling or whatever. So if people don't recognize that, then it's obviously it leads to communication breakdown, but first they have to recognize that this is happening, that we both want the same thing.
Yes. And as second language teachers, this is super important. And I'll give you an example that happened to me pretty much an hour ago, 60 minutes ago. Seriously, I was teaching this. I was teaching this student, and this student was trying to use the term scapegoat. That's what the person was trying to tell me. But in Portuguese, we don't have the term that we use for scapegoat in Brazil, in Brazilian Portuguese, is laranja, orange. And then my student said, "Oh, because I want to use this person as an orange." So shared intention is this: I could understand the intention of my student, but the word that she chose was not correct. So because I understood the intent of the person, I was actually able to help my student say, "Hey, wait, that's not the word that you want. You want to use scapegoat." Ah, okay, I got it. Mute.
Sorry, and we do that a lot. No, I mute it because I have like crazy stuff going on in my neighborhood. No, but we do that a lot because, like, especially if you know the person's L1 or a little bit of the L1, and it's super helpful because, or I mean, if you don't know the person's L1, then you can just say, like, "Can you explain that to me?" And then they have to do, they have to kind of go around and be able to have that conversation.
Actually, you can do that without the person actually having to explain it to you. You can actually understand based on the body language. You can actually read other things. You can read things other than the language only. You know, you can grasp intention, and then you're like, I think you're trying to say this, and then you help the student. But of course, if you know L1, yeah, that's going to be super helpful for that in this process actually. So that's why shared intention is really, really important. But there are very interesting videos because the beacon of shared intentions is Michael Tomasello. And he's not a linguist. Seriously, he's an anthropologist. Yeah, he studied apes. But he studied the psychology of apes, how apes communicate language, And he has interesting videos on YouTube. It's a little bit hard to find some of those videos, but once it is able to find it. It is able. Sorry, it's possible to find these videos. And
I got it. We were sharing intention. I understood
yeah,
what you meant.
I don't know why I said it. Guys, this is water. I promise. I'm not drinking any alcoholic beverage here. But anyway.
It's way too early for that.
Too early, but as some people say, it's 5 o'clock somewhere in the planet. So, but it's water. But in one of the videos, he performed an experiment with kids, and there was an adult opening a closet. Actually, I don't think it was a closet. Well, it was a cabinet. Opening a cabinet, putting an object in a cabinet, closing it, and leaving the room. And there was an infant, there was a baby watching the whole thing. I think the adult did this for like 3 times, I guess, something like this. Not more than that. The fourth time that the adult came in the room, the baby stood up and opened the cabinet. That's shared intention. Because the baby was able, that's why I said able, because the baby was able to read the intention of the adult based on the frequencies. Once, the person is doing, that gigantic person is doing something. And then twice, oh, wait a minute, the person is doing that again? Putting the object there? 3 times, oh, okay, so let me open it for you because I know you're here and you're going to open that and you're going to put something there. So that's shared intention. You kind of like read the mind of other people.
Right. Well, okay. Was shared intention, or would that go off to like Pavlov's and behaviorism?
Oh, I really don't know. I'm not an expert on this.
No, that's what I'm saying, because I mean, we have these theories and these interpretations. So his interpretation was that there was shared intention. The baby was able to read kind of like the intention of the adult going in. And other people would have, and this is maybe why linguists and everybody in our field have so many different opinions on things, because another person might have seen that and said, well, that looks like more of a behaviorist type of conditioning.
The thing is, social interactions trigger cognitive activity.
Okay.
Without without the social interaction, the baby would never be able to read the intention of the person by herself or himself, by themselves. Um, that would be impossible. That would be impossible. So social interactions are a big part of cognitive activities. I said, I think it was in the very beginning, I said experiences, based on experiences. Every experience matters. Every experience matters. Because again, um, there's something called the Wittgensteinian paradox. I'm going crazy now. Can I?
Okay, like I have the NASA shirt on. Like, let's go, let's go. We'll go to outer space. Let's go. I'm ready.
Okay, let me get my bottle lid here. So, yeah, the Wittgensteinian paradox is, in simple terms, is the conceptualization of everything. It is based on the experience that the person has got in life. So, for example, well, we have cameras here. I don't know, but this is this is red for you, right? Right, Kelly?
Yeah, it's red for
Yeah.
me.
Okay. No, I'm saying that because, well, depending on the light,
Yeah.
maybe
No, it's red.
orange,
It's
but
red.
it's red.
Yeah.
Okay, great. How do you know that this lid is red?
Because I can see it. I don't know.
Who told you that this is red?
Well, that's been red my entire life.
Why?
Because when I was little, somebody told me like red, and then
Exactly.
I associate.
The Wittgensteinian paradox says that this is not red. This is your interpretation of this color.
Oh, I've heard of this. Wait. No. I'm like same level nerd right now. Yes. Okay. Because I've heard of this when I was in like high school or something. We were talking about how people interpret colors differently. And so like my red might not be your red. You might see my green and associate it with red, but that's
That's the whole Wittgensteinian paradox. So the thing is, this is not red. This is your interpretation of red.
Mm-hmm.
So the same goes for this. You can call it mug. I can call it cup.
Right.
You know?
Well, and that has cultural influences because, for example, when people say cup, well, okay, I got a cup here. So for those of you who aren't watching, me and Rudy just holding up objects. I apologize. No, but like, for example, like this, my Celtics cup is a cup for me because it's plastic and it doesn't have a handle. It's because of the materials and the shape of it. And this is a mug for me because it's made out of ceramic and it has a handle. But that is not necessarily the case because in some other cultures, this might be considered a cup too because it doesn't have a saucer or because of the materials or the form, right? So there's this whole idea of like.
And let me ask you. Can I ask you? Yes, and can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Who's responsible for the creation of cultures?
Oh, well, I don't know.
People. Social interactions. Social interactions trigger cognitive activities. They go hand in hand.
Yeah. Okay. So,
So that's why, because of that culture, because of those social interactions, they may call it cup, as I said.
Right. Well, yeah, because there's a lot of places that say like cup and it doesn't have the handle on it, and that's not a cup. That's that's a cup, not a mug, and this is a mug, etc. So there's a lot of different places that refer to things differently, and that goes back all the way back to the beginning of our discussion of mental representations, right?
Exactly. So that's the whole thing. So, for example, and that's the whole thing with language. I mean, how do you know that T-shirt is T-shirt? How do you know that? That's a good one. That's something I think I gave a webinar on this not so long ago. I don't remember when, not so long ago. So, for example, thank you. How do you know that the person is actually thanking you?
Oh, well, I would say based on the interaction, but also maybe based on the tone. I don't know.
That's the thing. It's all about mental representations because the person can say, hey, thank you. All right. And the person can say, thank you. And then the person can say, thank you. So you see, based on mental representations, based on experiences, if a person has had experiences with sarcastic people, another person that comes in and generally says, thank you, the person is going to be, ha ha ha, yeah, sure. No, seriously, I'm saying, thank you, I'm thanking you. So it's all about mental representation. So we're going to choose everything, every word combination, chunks. Now I'm talking about chunks again. So chunks based on the mental representations that we have. And that's the whole basis of grammar construction, because when you say thank you have combination of words. And then you have grammar because they are respecting the rules. The rules themselves are just, things that people made up things. Why? Because it's all about the chunk. The same when you say something like, "Oh, I like my mom," for example. I like my mom. You have a lot of grammar here. As you said, you have subject, and then you have a verb, and then you have an object, and then you have a syntactic form here, and then you have valences. I don't want to get into valences here because not everybody knows what valences are. I'm not going to get into trace, because if you get into trace, you just say something like, I gave that. Oh, something like, no, I gave him. Oh, I gave him. And then you have trace. Trace of what? Trace of the object. That's why it's possible to say, yes, I gave him.
Okay, yeah, we're not gonna get into that though.
Because someone mentioned the object first previously. And then you just say, yes, I gave him.
Okay.
And then you have trace, even though it's not there, and then you have the trace of that. That's called trace. Yeah, and that's all based on experiences.
Right. And so it's interesting because if we think about the digital world, texting and messaging and emails and all of that stuff, how people can just completely misinterpret and miscommunicate in those things based on what they assume the other person is saying or the way the other person is saying it. And when we think of, English language teaching specifically, it's thinking about the pronunciation and intonation and pitch and tone and everything that you use, because you're going to try to be as clear and concise as possible. But even if you're representing yourself completely, we'll say, I don't know the best word to use here, like authentically or like honestly, the other person might just misinterpret it because of their experiences as well.
Exactly. Yes. It's as long as we're here, yes, there's room for misinterpretation. Because again, it all depends on the experiences. But the thing is, we choose the words carefully. We craft what we're going to say, even though we don't actually go full meta awarenistic about this. We don't reason upon this, but we choose words very carefully as we communicate. Why? Because again, I want to manipulate the mental state of other people. And when I say manipulate the mental state of other people, this is a good thing, okay? It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, we're not talking about like brainwashing, right?
No, we're not brainwashing anyone. No. Jeez, no.
Shared intention.
Yeah, the manipulation of the mental state means that, okay, I have something in my mind and I'm going to use my words. I'm going to use a sequence of words, and those words are going to fly, are going to be based on whatever. And my words are going to hit you and are going to hit everybody watching us right now. And my words are going to be full responsible for transferring what's in my mind to your mind. And you're going to be able to actually see what's in my mind. So I'm manipulating your mental state.
Good.
That's
hopefully in a good way.
That's so cool. Now I sound like a real nerd.
Yeah, you went full nerd on us. Thank you for that.
I went full berserker nerd. I don't know.
Fair. No, I think it's important though. It's a little technical and sometimes it's a little abstract, but if we're teaching languages, like this is really important for people to start thinking about, because it makes a difference in how your learners are going to be able to interact with the world and each other. So yeah. Any last things to say?
Really?
Last minute tips?
Are we done? Really?
Yeah, we've been here for like an hour.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was having fun.
I have to cut off the nerd for a little. You're more than welcome to come back. We'll just go straight nerd again.
I was just warming up. Okay. No,
I know
seriously.
you bring in abstract theories. It's like we go piece by piece, Rudy, just like little
Okay,
pieces.
okay. So, before you watch this episode, guys, watch Andres' episode first.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll put a disclaimer on the show
No,
notes.
seriously, because our jobs complement each other.
Okay.
You know, he is the guy that talks about brains, and I'm the guy that talks about minds. There's a big difference between a brain and a mind.
Mm.
They're not the same thing. Brain is the organ, and you have the synapses and all these things. I mean, I do understand a little bit about brains and etc., but I'm not an expert as Andre is, and he talks about the brains. And again, it's the organs, synapses, and all these things. And then the mind is the fourth dimension of the brain. It's something completely crazy that's going on, but it's in the brain ish. But watch him first in this channel, Real Talk and ELT. Watch him first, and then watch this episode. We
Yeah, this is
complement
like
each
a combo. And at some point, we're going to sit down. We're going to have Rudy, Andre, and me. And it's going to be me trying to figure out all the meaning of life. and Rudy and Andre just going off on tangents. So, but yeah, we'll try and get that combination together. So. But I want to think,
No, seriously, no. Let me thank you first. Seriously, Kelly, really, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk about all these things. Not everybody talks about. Nobody sees language acquisition like this. I know it's something like a bit crazy, a little bit, a bit crazy, a little bit. No, yeah, a bit crazy.
You're off your rocker a little bit. We know.
It's a bit crazy, and I would say kind of off for times because, like, what mental representations? What are you talking about? We're talking about languages, but seriously, they are completely together. So again, thank you very much, Kelly. It was really nice. It was really nice.
It was wonderful. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
That's it for us. We'll see everybody later. Ready to join the conversation? Head on over to Instagram at Real Talk and ELT Pod or at Kelly Pennington ELT and send me a message. That's it for me. Take care of yourself, your health, your vibe, and your tribe. Until next time.